You are not tired because life is hard. You are tired because you keep taking the bait. Every comment, every insult, every provocation, every time you feel the need to explain yourself. This audiobook will show you how people control you without ever touching you. The moment you react emotionally, you lose leverage. Power belongs to the person who can pause, stay silent, and walk away unchanged. Today, you stop reacting. Today, you stop feeding other people's chaos. This is the art of not taking the bait. Most people think arguments are about truth. They're wrong. Most arguments are not about facts. They are not about solutions. They are not about understanding. They are about emotion. They are about pulling a reaction out of you. They are about disturbing your state. They are about making you move when they want you to move. That is the trap. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. You have a choice. Here is the truth most people never learn. Whoever controls the emotional temperature controls the interaction. That's the key. People do not provoke because they are confident. They provoke because they want leverage. They want you off balance. They want you emotional. They want you reactive. Because the moment you react emotionally, you stop thinking clearly. You stop choosing deliberately. You start responding automatically. And automatic behavior is controllable behavior. Let this phrase burn into your mind. If it hooks your emotion, it controls your behavior. Say it again. If it hooks your emotion, it controls your behavior. That is not philosophy. That is mechanics. Look at social media. A stranger insults you, questions your intelligence, mocks your values, attacks your identity, and suddenly your heart rate rises. Your fingers move faster. Your attention is hijacked. You're typing, explaining, defending, proving. For what? You don't know them. They don't care about truth. They care about reaction. You took the bait. You have a choice. Social media is not a place for conversation. It is a marketplace for attention. And outrage is the highest paying currency. The angrier you get, the longer you stay. The longer you stay, the more valuable you become to someone else. If it hooks your emotion, it controls your behavior. Now look at the workplace. A coworker makes a passive-aggressive comment. A supervisor questions you publicly. Someone undermines you in a meeting. Your chest tightens. Your ego flares. You feel the urge to correct them immediately. That urge is the bait, because once you react emotionally, you reveal everything. Your insecurities, your triggers, your need for approval. And people remember that. You don't need their permission. High-level professionals understand this. They don't rush to respond. They don't defend impulsively. They don't react in real time. They pause, because pause creates space, and space creates power. That's the key. Families run on the same trap. Old arguments, predictable buttons, familiar emotional scripts. One comment, one look, one tone of voice. And suddenly you're 12 years old again, defensive, reactive, explaining yourself to people who already decided how they feel. That's not communication, that's conditioning. If it hooks your emotion, it controls your behavior. This is why the trap works so well. It feels personal, but it's not personal. It's mechanical. People throw bait because it works, because it has worked before, because it keeps working on people who never learn to pause. You have a choice. The trap is simple. Trigger emotion. Force reaction. Gain control. That's it. Once you understand this, you stop asking, "Why would they say that?" and start asking, "What reaction are they trying to get from me?" That question changes everything, because now you are no longer inside the trap. You are looking at it from above, and from above, the trap looks obvious. The insult isn't clever. The provocation isn't original. The comment isn't accidental, it's bait, and bait only works if you bite. You don't need their permission to disengage. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need their permission to walk away unchanged. Most people believe strength looks like responding immediately, correcting, defending, winning the argument. That's a lie. Real strength is restraint. Real power is emotional discipline. It's not about being right. It's about being unhookable. That's the key. Let me be clear. This is not about being passive. This is not about being weak. This is not about letting people walk over you. It's about choosing the battlefield. You don't fight every fight offered to you. You don't respond to every signal. You don't explain yourself to every voice, because every reaction costs you something. Energy, focus, time, authority. And most reactions deliver nothing in return. If it hooks your emotion, it controls your behavior. Watch how often people try to rush you. Answer now. Explain yourself. Respond immediately. Urgency is a pressure tactic. Emotion plus urgency equals compliance. That's not accidental. You have a choice. The moment you feel that internal spike, that tightening, that heat, that need to respond, that is your signal, not to react, but to pause. Pause breaks the trap. Pause returns control to you. Because when you pause, you are no longer acting from emotion. You are acting from discipline. It's not about impulse, it's about discipline. That distinction matters. Discipline means you decide when and how to engage. Discipline means you choose silence when silence serves you. Discipline means you respond only when it aligns with your goals. Most people never do this. They live inside reaction loops. Trigger, react, regret. Trigger, react. Trigger, react. Justify. Trigger, react. Explain over and over again. And then they wonder why they feel exhausted, why they feel drained, why they feel controlled. Because they are. If it hooks your emotion, it controls your behavior. This chapter is not about mastering others. It's about mastering yourself. Because once you master your emotional responses, no one can pull your strings. That's the foundation. Everything else in this audiobook builds on this truth. You cannot stop taking the bait until you understand how the bait works. You cannot stay calm until you see how often you are being provoked on purpose. And you cannot become powerful until you stop giving emotional access to people who haven't earned it. You have a choice. From this moment forward, you start noticing the trap. You start seeing the pattern. You start recognizing the hook before it sinks in. And once you see it, you pause. You don't need their permission. You mastered awareness. You saw the mechanism. Now it's time to talk about the cost of reacting. Because every emotional reaction has a price. Every reaction you show is data. Your tone, your timing, your defensiveness, your silence or lack of it. People are always watching, and most people don't realize this simple truth. Emotional reactions are leverage. That's the key. When you react, you reveal. When you reveal, you give information. When you give information, someone else can use it. Let this line settle in. What you reveal emotionally can be used strategically. Say it again. What you reveal emotionally can be used strategically. This is not about paranoia. This is about awareness. Every visible emotional response tells the other person something important. What bothers you? What matters to you? Where you feel insecure? How fast you can be pushed? And once they know that, they know how to move you. You have a choice. Most people think reacting is harmless. They think it's honest. They think it's authentic. No. In competitive environments, business, negotiations, leadership, even relationships, emotion is information. And information is power. Look at negotiations. The person who shows frustration first loses leverage. The person who looks eager first weakens their position. The person who reacts to an offer instead of pausing tells the other side exactly where the pressure point is. That's not theory. That's practice. High-level negotiators train themselves to stay neutral, not because they don't feel anything, but because they don't show everything. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about discipline. It's not about honesty. It's about control. That's the key. If you lean forward too fast, they raise the price. If you hesitate emotionally, they push harder. If you react defensively, they know you're unsure. What you reveal emotionally can be used strategically. Now look at online arguments. Someone insults you publicly, questions your competence, mocks your beliefs. If you respond immediately angry, sarcastic, defensive, you have already lost, because now they know, they got to you. You care what they think. You're emotionally invested. They won. They didn't win with facts. They won with leverage. You gave it to them. You have a choice. Online provocateurs don't want dialogue. They want dominance. They want engagement. They want reaction. Every reply feeds them. Every explanation rewards them. Every emotional response confirms they have influence over you. That's the trap. You don't need their permission to disengage. You don't need their permission to stay silent. You don't need their permission to protect your emotional bandwidth. Silence starves leverage. That's the key. Now let's talk about toxic co-workers. This is where emotional leverage shows up daily. The passive-aggressive comment, the subtle disrespect, the public correction, the strategic eye roll. They are watching closely. If you snap back, they learn you're reactive. If you over-explain, they learn you're insecure. If you freeze, they learn you avoid conflict. None of these are judgments. They are observations. And people who seek control collect observations like tools. What you reveal emotionally can be used strategically. The toxic coworker is not always trying to hurt you. Often they're testing you, testing your boundaries, testing your composure, testing how much emotional access they have. Every test you fail teaches them how to push harder next time. You have a choice. You can react emotionally and give them leverage, or you can respond calmly and take it away. Calm is disarming. Neutral tone, measured words, unrushed responses. This doesn't mean you say nothing forever. It means you speak on your terms. It's not about avoiding conflict. It's about controlling timing. Timing is leverage. That's the key. Here's a rule you must internalize. The first person to lose emotional control loses strategic control. Always. In meetings, in arguments, in relationships, in negotiations. Emotion compresses time. It makes you rush. It makes you speak too soon. It makes you commit too early. Discipline expands time, and time favors the composed. You have a choice. Next time you feel the urge to respond immediately, pause. Ask yourself one question. Does responding now help me or help them? That question alone will save you years of wasted energy, because most reactions benefit the other person, not you. That's the key. This chapter is not teaching you to be cold. It's teaching you to be deliberate. There is a difference. Deliberate means you choose what to show. You choose when to speak. You choose where to invest emotion. Undisciplined emotion chooses for you. And whatever chooses for you controls you. It's not about anger. It's about discipline. It's not about proving your point. It's about protecting your position. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need their permission to think. You don't need their permission to stay neutral. Let me give you a behavioral instruction. From now on, treat your emotional reactions like confidential information. You don't share confidential information with strangers. You don't broadcast it publicly. You don't hand it to people who haven't earned trust. Your emotions deserve the same protection. That's the key. This doesn't mean you never express emotion. It means you express it intentionally. with people who are safe, in moments that serve growth, not in situations designed to exploit you. What you reveal emotionally can be used strategically. If you remember nothing else from this chapter, remember that. The less you reveal under pressure, the more control you retain. The calmer you remain, the more leverage shifts back to you. You have a choice. Every interaction is an exchange of power. You either give it away unconsciously, or you hold it with discipline. This chapter taught you what emotional reactions really are. Not honesty, not authenticity, leverage. You learned how people use it. You learned how you've given it away, and you learned how to take it back. Now you're ready for the next step, because once you understand leverage, you must learn the most misunderstood weapon of all. Silence. You mastered awareness. You reclaimed leverage. Now let's talk about restraint. Most people are afraid of silence. They rush to fill it. They explain. They justify. They react because silence feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is the point. Silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates power. That's the key. People talk when they are nervous. They talk when they want approval. They talk when they feel threatened. They speak too fast. They say too much. They reveal too early. Silence interrupts that pattern. And when patterns are interrupted, control shifts. Let this line settle in. Silence is not surrender. Silence is selection. Say it again. Silence is not surrender. Silence is selection. Silence means you are choosing not to give immediate access. You are choosing not to react on impulse. You are choosing not to expose your position prematurely. You have a choice. Low-status behavior is loud. High-status behavior is measured. Watch powerful people. They don't rush to respond. They don't fill every pause. They don't explain themselves to everyone. They speak less. They react slower. They choose their moments, not because they are shy, not because they are unsure, because they are disciplined. It's not about confidence, it's about discipline. That's the key. When you speak less, people listen more. When you pause, people lean in. When you stay silent, others reveal themselves. Silence puts pressure on the other person. Pressure makes people uncomfortable. And uncomfortable people talk. They explain. They justify. They overplay their hand, all while you observe. Silence is not surrender. Silence is selection. Let's talk about uncertainty. When you don't immediately respond, people don't know where they stand. They don't know what you think. They don't know what you'll do next. That uncertainty forces them to guess, and guessing weakens their position. This is why silence is powerful in negotiations. You make an offer, then you stop talking. No filler, no justification, no nervous explanations, just silence. The other person feels it. They rush to respond. They start negotiating against themselves. You didn't say anything, you just waited. That's the key. Silence is also powerful in conflict. Someone insults you, provokes you, tries to pull a reaction. You pause. You don't match their energy. You don't escalate. You don't defend immediately. That pause sends a signal: I am not controlled by your behavior. You don't need their permission to stay silent. You don't need their permission to take your time. You don't need their permission to choose restraint. Most people confuse silence with weakness because they associate strength with noise. That's conditioning. Strength is not volume. Strength is control. It's not about aggression. It's about discipline. Silence is not surrender. Silence is selection. Here's what silence actually does. It slows the interaction down. It gives you time to think. It prevents emotional leakage. And most importantly, it keeps leverage on your side. Remember the core truth. If it hooks your emotion, it controls your behavior. Silence prevents the hook. No reaction, no data, no leverage for them. You have a choice. Now let's get practical. When someone sends you a message designed to provoke you, Don't respond immediately, not in seconds, not in minutes. Pause. Let the emotional wave pass. Emotion is temporary. Regret is permanent. That's the key. When someone challenges you publicly, you don't have to respond publicly. You don't have to perform. You don't have to defend your identity in front of an audience. Silence denies them the stage. When someone demands an explanation, ask yourself, do they deserve one? Most of the time, the answer is no. You don't need their permission. Silence doesn't mean you never speak. It means you speak when it serves you. There is a difference. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is timing. Timing is power. High-status individuals understand this instinctively. They don't rush. They don't scramble. They don't chase closure. They are comfortable leaving things unresolved. Because unresolved situations create leverage. That's the key. Let me be clear. Silence will make some people uncomfortable. Good. People who rely on provoking reactions hate silence. People who manipulate through emotion fear silence. People who seek control need feedback. Silence cuts off their supply. Silence is not surrender. Silence is selection. Now this requires discipline. Your ego will want to speak. Your pride will want to respond. Your emotions will want release. That's normal. But discipline means you don't obey every urge. It's not about ego. It's about discipline. You are not suppressing yourself. You are mastering yourself. Here's a behavior instruction you must practice. The next time you feel the urge to explain, pause and ask, what happens if I say nothing? In most cases, nothing bad happens. In many cases, the situation improves. In some cases, the other person exposes themselves. That's the key. Silence also reveals who respects you. People who respect you will give you space. They won't demand instant access. They won't pressure you to react. People who don't respect you will push harder. That information is valuable. Silence filters relationships. You have a choice. You can be constantly available and constantly reactive, or you can be selective and composed. One drains you. The other empowers you. Silence is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with practice. Start small. Pause before replying to messages. Pause before responding in meetings. Pause before reacting emotionally. Each pause strengthens your control. Each silence sharpens your presence. Silence is not surrender. Silence is selection. This chapter is not about becoming distant. It's about becoming deliberate. You are learning to choose when to engage. You are learning to choose when to speak. You are learning to choose when silence serves you better than words. And once you understand silence, you'll realize something uncomfortable. Many times you talk too much because you are trying to prove something. That urge to prove is the next trap. You mastered leverage. You learned restraint. Now it's time to remove the need to justify yourself. Because real power never explains itself. Most people explain themselves too much. Not because they are unclear, not because they lack intelligence, not because they owe anyone context. They explain because they want approval. That's the truth. Explanation is often a subconscious request for permission. Permission to be right. Permission to decide. Permission to exist without resistance. That's the trap. And the more you explain, the more authority you give away. That's the key. Let this line sink in. You don't need permission to be decisive. Say it again. You don't need permission to be decisive. Every unnecessary explanation weakens your position. Every long justification signals uncertainty. Every overclarification invites debate. And debate is where authority goes to die. You have a choice. You can explain yourself endlessly, or you can stand on your decisions calmly. One asks for approval. The other assumes it. It's not about clarity. It's about discipline. Watch how this shows up in daily life. Someone questions your decision. You immediately start listing reasons. Background, context, motives. You think you're being responsible, but what you're really saying is, please accept this. That's not strength. That's negotiation for validation. High-status individuals don't do this. They state. They pause. They let the silence do the work. That's the key. When you explain too much, you shift the power dynamic. You move from authority to defense, from leadership to justification, from decision-maker to applicant. And once you're in that position, people feel entitled to judge. They interrupt. They challenge. They debate your reasons, not because your reasons are weak, but because you invited them in. You don't need their permission. Let's be clear, there is a difference between clarifying and explaining. Clarifying is brief. Explaining is excessive. Clarifying answers genuine confusion. Explaining responds to perceived disapproval. One is strategic, the other is emotional. It's not about communication. It's about discipline. That's the key. Look at leaders who command respect. They don't overtalk. They don't over-justify. They don't over-promise. They say what needs to be said, and then they stop. Their calm becomes the frame. Others either accept it or reveal their insecurity by pushing back. Either way, the leader stays centered. You have a choice. Now look at relationships. Many people explain themselves constantly to be understood, but understanding cannot be forced. The more you explain, the more some people push. They ask follow-up questions. They poke holes. They keep you talking, not because they want clarity, but because they want control. Every extra sentence you give them is another handle to grab. That's the key. You don't need their permission to say no. You don't need their permission to change your mind. You don't need their permission to choose differently. Because I decided is a complete sentence. Most people are terrified to use it, because it exposes something uncomfortable. Confidence without explanation, and confidence without explanation makes insecure people uneasy. Good. Here's a hard truth. People who demand explanations often don't respect you. They test boundaries by asking why repeatedly. They don't want reasons. They want compliance. If you keep explaining, you teach them that pressure works. You have a choice. You can train people how to treat you, or you can let them train you. Stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. That's not communication. That's submission. It's not about kindness. It's about discipline. Let's bring this into the workplace. A manager makes a decision. A team member questions it. A weak response sounds like this. Well, I thought maybe because of this and also that, and we considered. A strong response sounds like this. This is the direction we're taking. Then silence. That pause communicates certainty. If clarification is needed, you give it. If not, you don't fill the space with insecurity. That's the key. The same applies when you're not the leader. You propose an idea. Someone challenges it aggressively. You don't scramble. You don't over-defend. You state your position once, calmly, clearly, and then you stop. Your composure speaks louder than your words. You don't need their permission to be decisive. Here's a behavioral instruction. For the next week, notice how often you explain unnecessarily. Notice the moment right after you state something when you feel the urge to keep talking. That urge is ego seeking safety. Pause there. Let the silence stretch. Most of the time, nothing bad happens. In fact, something powerful happens. People adjust. They sense your certainty. They respect the boundary. Or they reveal their need for control. All outcomes give you information. That's the key. This chapter is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming grounded. You still communicate. You still clarify when it matters. You still care. But you stop performing for acceptance, because authority doesn't perform. It stands. It's not about arrogance. It's about discipline. You don't need their permission. Say that again. You don't need their permission to be decisive. When you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim time. You reclaim energy. You reclaim authority. And something else happens. People start projecting their own assumptions onto your silence. Some will respect you more. Some will feel threatened. Some will back off. That's fine. You are not here to manage everyone's feelings. You are here to manage yourself. That's the key. When you no longer explain yourself, you also stop trying to control how others perceive you. And that is freedom. Because the need to explain is tied to the need to be liked. And the need to be liked is one of the strongest hooks people use against you. If it hooks your emotion, it controls your behavior. This chapter removes that hook. You learned to pause. You learned to stay silent. Now you've learned to stop justifying your existence. But there is another layer. Some people don't need explanations because they already know exactly how to push you. They study your reactions. They learn your triggers. They exploit predictability. That's next. You stopped explaining. Now let's expose the real danger. Most people think emotion makes them human. They think it makes them real. They think it makes them authentic. But uncontrolled emotion does something else. It makes you predictable, and predictability is control's best friend. That's the key. Let this phrase settle deep. Predictable emotion equals manipulatable behavior. Say it again. Predictable emotion equals manipulatable behavior. This is not an insult. It's a warning. Anything predictable can be managed. Anything managed can be used. Anything used is no longer free. You have a choice. Emotional people react the same way every time. Same trigger, same response, same outcome. And once that pattern is noticed, it is exploited. That's how manipulation works, not through intelligence, not through strength, through pattern recognition. Look closely. Someone criticizes you. You get defensive. Someone ignores you. You chase. Someone challenges your ego. You argue. Someone questions your value. You overperform. These are not random reactions. They are scripts. And scripts are predictable. That's the key. People who seek control don't need to overpower you. They just need to learn you. Once they know what pushes your buttons, they don't need force. They just press. Predictable emotion equals manipulatable behavior. This is why toxic people feel intuitive. They're not intuitive. They're observant. They watch how you respond. They note your emotional spikes. They remember what makes you lose composure. Then they repeat it. Again, and again, and again, and again. You think you're being targeted. In reality, you're being used. You have a choice. Let's bring this into real life. At work, there's always someone who knows exactly how to provoke you. A tone, a phrase, a look, and every time you respond the same way. They smile because now they're driving. They don't need authority. They don't need power. They have your reaction. That's leverage. That's the key. In relationships, it's even clearer. One person sulks, the other rushes to fix it. One person withdraws, the other panics. One person explodes, the other submits. These patterns repeat because they work, and the person who reacts emotionally ends up doing the emotional labor every time. Predictable emotion equals manipulatable behavior. This is why people stay stuck in the same conflicts for years, same arguments, same triggers, same endings, different day, same script. Because no one breaks the pattern. You have a choice. Breaking predictability is uncomfortable. Why? Because predictability feels familiar, and familiarity feels safe, even when it's hurting you. That's the trap. It's not about emotion. It's about discipline. Emotion without discipline is a liability. Discipline without emotion is cold. But discipline with emotion is power. That's the key. Let's talk about triggers. Triggers are not random. They are learned responses. Something happened once. Your nervous system remembered it. Now it reacts before you think. That's not weakness. That's biology. But biology does not excuse lack of discipline. You don't need their permission to retrain yourself. Every time you react the same way, you reinforce the pattern. Every time you pause, you weaken it. This is how predictability dies. Pause breaks patterns. That's the key. Here's a behavioral instruction. For the next week, identify your top 3 emotional triggers. Not the surface triggers, the real ones. Disrespect, rejection, being ignored, feeling judged, losing control. Write them down mentally. Now, every time one appears, do one thing. Delay your response, even by 10 seconds. That pause disrupts the pattern. Predictability relies on speed. Discipline relies on delay. It's not about flaw, it's about discipline. Say that again. It's not about flaw, it's about discipline. Most people think being emotional makes them honest. But honesty without control is exposure. Exposure gives others access. Access gives others influence. You don't need their permission to protect yourself. High-level individuals work hard to be unreadable. Not mysterious. Not deceptive. Unreadable. They don't react the same way every time. They don't explode on cue. They don't reward provocation with consistency. That inconsistency forces others to be careful. Uncertainty flips the power dynamic. That's the key. When people don't know how you'll react, they stop pushing. When they stop pushing, you regain peace. This chapter is not about hiding emotion. It's about choosing when emotion shows. You are not eliminating feeling. You are eliminating predictability, because predictable emotion equals manipulatable behavior. Remember that. If someone can predict your reaction, they can plan around it. If they can plan around it, they can control outcomes. This is why calm people are hard to manipulate. Not because they're smarter, but because they don't react on schedule. They're not programmable. That's the goal. You have a choice. Remain emotionally predictable and be easy to manage, or develop emotional discipline and become hard to move. Discipline creates distance. Distance creates clarity. Clarity creates power. That's the key. You've now learned something dangerous. You've learned that most of your emotional reactions are not spontaneous. They are habits, and habits can be changed. But there is one habit deeper than all the others, the one that keeps emotion hooked. The one that screams, "How dare they?" The ego. You broke the pattern. Now it's time to confront the hook itself. Every bait has a hook. Every provocation has a target. That target is your ego. That's the key. Insults only work if they threaten identity. Criticism only stings if it touches something you protect. Disrespect only hurts if it challenges who you think you are. Let this line sink in. They can't bait what you don't protect. Say it again. They can't bait what you don't protect. Most people think they are reacting to words. They're not. They're reacting to a perceived threat to identity. Someone questions your intelligence, your value, your competence, your status, and suddenly your body reacts, heart rate up, jaw tight, mind racing. That reaction is ego, not arrogance, not confidence. Ego. Ego is the part of you that needs to be seen a certain way. Ego is the part that needs validation. Ego is the part that says, "I must correct this." That's the hook. And once the hook is set, behavior follows. If it hooks your emotion, it controls your behavior. That's the key. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most provocation works because you care too much about being right, respected, or recognized. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But discipline means you don't let humanity run the show. You have a choice. The ego wants to win arguments. The ego wants to defend image. The ego wants the last word. Discipline wants peace. Discipline wants leverage. Discipline wants control. It's not about pride. It's about discipline. Watch what happens when someone insults a calm person. Nothing. The insult lands and falls flat. No reaction. No escalation. No emotional return. Why? Because there's nothing to hook. They can't bait what you don't protect. Now watch what happens when someone insults a fragile ego. Immediate response. Sarcasm. Anger. Explanation. That reaction feeds the provocateur. They got what they wanted. Attention, control, confirmation. That's the key. This is why some people seem impossible to offend. Not because they are numb, not because they are passive, because their identity is not on the table. They don't outsource self-worth. They don't need external validation. They don't react to threats that aren't real. You don't need their permission to stop defending yourself. Here's a powerful shift you must make. Stop tying your worth to other people's opinions. The moment you do that, you give strangers authority over your nervous system. That's dangerous. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. Let's be clear. This doesn't mean you accept disrespect. It means you don't let disrespect control you. There is a difference. You can set boundaries calmly. You can address issues deliberately. You can walk away without reaction. Ego screams. Discipline moves quietly. That's the key. Here's how you dissolve ego in real time. When someone tries to provoke you, ask yourself, what part of my identity feels threatened right now? Is it intelligence, status, competence, masculinity, worth? Once you name it, the power weakens. Because awareness breaks automatic behavior. You have a choice. You can let ego react, or you can observe ego. Observation creates distance. Distance dissolves the hook. They can't bait what you don't protect. Now let's talk about social media again. Most online arguments are ego battles. People defending identity. Beliefs. Labels. Political, cultural, personal. No one is listening. Everyone is defending. Why? Because ego is activated. And when ego is activated, truth becomes irrelevant. Winning becomes everything. That's the trap. You don't need their permission to disengage. Silence is often the most ego-free response. Silence says, I don't need to prove myself to you. That's power. Now let's talk about humiliation. Public embarrassment hurts because ego is exposed. But here's the truth. If you don't rush to protect your image, the moment passes. People move on. But if you react emotionally, you freeze that moment in time. You make it bigger than it was. That's the key. Ego wants to fix perception immediately. Discipline understands that perception fades. You have a choice. Protect your image impulsively, or protect your peace deliberately. One keeps you trapped, the other frees you. It's not about pride. It's about discipline. Here's a behavioral instruction. The next time you feel insulted, do this. Say nothing for 5 seconds. In those 5 seconds, repeat internally, they can't bait what I don't protect. That pause interrupts ego. And when ego loses momentum, you regain control. That's the key. This chapter is not about killing ego. Ego will always exist. It's about not obeying it. You are not your ego. You are the one who observes it. Once you realize that, provocation loses its grip. People can throw bait all day. If there's no hook, nothing sticks. Predictable emotion equals manipulatable behavior. But ego-free responses are unpredictable, and unpredictability removes leverage. You have a choice: react to protect identity or respond to protect control. One is emotional, the other is disciplined. They can't bait what you don't protect. You've now removed the hook. You've seen the trap. You've cut the leverage. You've dissolved the ego trigger. But there is one more layer. Speed. Speed is what keeps ego alive. Fast reactions, instant replies, immediate defense. Slow down and ego starves. That's next. You disarm the hook. Now learn the timing. Most people respond too fast. They answer immediately. They react instantly. They speak before they think. That speed feels strong. It feels confident. It feels decisive. It's not. It's emotional. Speed is emotional. Delay is strategic. That's the key. Fast responses are rarely thoughtful. They are driven by urgency, ego, or discomfort. They are attempts to relieve internal pressure. Delay does the opposite. Delay creates space. Space creates clarity. Clarity creates dominance. You have a choice. When someone provokes you, they want speed. They want you to react before you think. They want emotion before discipline. That's how control works. Control thrives on immediacy. Delay breaks the loop. Speed is emotional. Delay is strategic. Say it again. Speed is emotional. Delay is strategic. High-status individuals understand this instinctively. They don't rush. They don't scramble. They don't chase resolution. They are comfortable letting things sit, because while others rush to close the loop, they gather information. That's the key. Let's talk about clarity. Emotion narrows vision. It creates tunnel focus. It pushes you toward extremes. Delay widens perspective. What felt urgent 10 seconds ago often feels irrelevant 10 minutes later. That alone should change how you respond. You don't need their permission to take time. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need their permission to think. Most people fear delay because they think it looks weak. It doesn't. It looks controlled. It's not about confidence. It's about discipline. Watch what happens when you don't respond immediately. People fill the silence. They send follow-up messages. They over-explain. They reveal intent, all without you saying a word. That's power. That's the key. In negotiations, delayed responses reset the frame. You receive an offer. You don't react. You don't counter immediately. You wait. The other side starts questioning their position. They wonder if they asked for too much. They soften. You didn't say anything. You just let time work. Delay reframes power dynamics instantly. Now look at conflict. Someone sends you an angry message. Accusatory. Emotional. If you respond immediately, you join their emotional state. If you delay, you force them to sit with their own words. Often, they regret them. Often, they calm down. Often, the conflict resolves itself. That's the key. Delay protects you from saying things you can't take back. Words spoken in emotion live longer than the emotion itself. Discipline saves you from future regret. You have a choice. This chapter is not about ignoring everything forever. It's about choosing when to engage. Delayed response is not avoidance, it's timing. Timing is dominance. It's not about flaw, it's about discipline. Here's a rule you must adopt. Never respond while your heart rate is elevated. That physical signal matters. Raised heart rate equals reduced judgment. Delay until your body settles, then respond from clarity. That's the key. Let's bring this into daily behavior. Emails, texts, messages. You don't owe immediate access. Just because someone reaches you instantly doesn't mean they deserve an instant response. Instant access erodes boundaries. Delayed response restores them. You don't need their permission. Now let's address fear. Many people respond fast because they fear consequences. They fear being misunderstood. They fear losing control. They fear escalation. But delay often reduces escalation. It communicates confidence. It says, I am not rattled. People respect that, and if they don't, that tells you something important. That's the key. Here's a behavior instruction. For the next week, implement the pause rule. Any message that triggers emotion waits at least 1 hour before response, not 5 minutes, not 10, 1 hour. During that hour, ask, what outcome do I want? Not what do I want to say. Outcome first, words second. This shifts you from reaction to strategy. Speed is emotional. Delay is strategic. This discipline will feel uncomfortable at first. Good. Discomfort means you're breaking old patterns. The ego wants immediate relief. Discipline wants long-term control. You choose. You have a choice. Delayed response also changes how people treat you over time. They learn you're not instantly accessible. They learn you don't jump on command. They learn you respond deliberately. That recalibrates respect. People mirror the boundaries you enforce. That's the key. This chapter builds on the last one. You removed ego from the equation. Now you slow the timeline. Ego thrives on speed. Discipline thrives on patience. The slower you move, the less people can push you. The less they push, the calmer you become. This is how you become unreactable. And once you are unreactable, you gain something rare. Perspective, because delay allows you to observe not just the message, but the person behind it. Their intent, their patterns, their strategy. That observation is the next skill. You learn when not to react. Now, learn how to watch. Most people react to moments. A comment, a message, a look. They respond instantly, as if the moment is the whole story. It's not. Moments are fragments. Patterns are truth. That's the key. If you want control, stop reacting to moments and start watching patterns. Step back. Zoom out. Stay neutral. Say it again. Step back. Zoom out. Stay neutral. Observers control rooms. Reactors feed them. Every room has 2 types of people, those who react emotionally and those who observe quietly. The reactors are loud, visible, predictable. The observers are calm, silent, dangerous, because they see everything. You have a choice. When someone provokes you, don't ask what did they just say. Ask what do they always do. That shift changes everything. Patterns reveal intent. Moments hide it. Someone who accidentally disrespects you once may deserve clarification. Someone who does it repeatedly is testing boundaries. Observation exposes that. That's the key. Most manipulation works because people are emotionally present but mentally absent. They feel everything. They analyze nothing. Emotion without observation is blindness. It's not about awareness. It's about discipline. Watch the room. Who speaks when tension rises? Who stays quiet? Who interrupts? Who rushes to fill silence? Those behaviors repeat, and repetition is information. Observers collect information. Reactors leak it. That's the difference. Step back. Zoom out. Stay neutral. Neutral does not mean passive. Neutral means unhooked. When you are neutral, you are not broadcasting emotion. You are not signaling insecurity. You are not revealing position. You are watching. That's power. You don't need their permission to observe. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need their permission to gather data. Let's talk about social situations. Group conversations often revolve around attention. Who gets it? Who loses it? Who tries to control it? Reactors chase attention. Observers command it. Why? Because observers speak last if at all. They don't jump into noise. They wait for clarity. And when they speak, their words land. That's the key. Now let's bring this into conflict. Someone challenges you. Your instinct is to respond, to defend, to correct. Instead, observe. Is this person always confrontational? Do they do this in public? Do they escalate when you stay calm? Those answers matter more than the words themselves. Because words are disposable, patterns are reliable. Step back, zoom out, stay neutral. Here's the danger of reacting to moments. Moments are emotionally charged. Patterns are strategically useful. Reacting to moments strains energy. Observing patterns saves it. You have a choice. Be emotionally busy or strategically calm. One keeps you trapped. The other sets you free. It's not about intelligence. It's about discipline. Let me give you a powerful behavioral instruction. Next time you feel provoked, do nothing for 10 seconds. In those 10 seconds, ask 3 questions. Is this new behavior or a pattern? What outcome does reacting give me? What do I gain by staying neutral? Those questions slow the interaction down. Slow creates clarity. Clarity creates dominance. That's the key. Observation also protects you from misjudgment. Many people react to perceived disrespect that wasn't intended. Emotion fills gaps with assumptions. Observation fills gaps with facts. Facts stabilize decisions. That's power. Observers rarely regret their responses. Reactors often do, because observation filters impulse. Step back. Zoom out. Stay neutral. Let's talk about meetings. Watch who reacts when challenged. Watch who stays composed. Watch who over-explains. Those reactions tell you who feels threatened. Threatened people are predictable. Predictable people are easy to manage. You learned that earlier. This chapter builds on it. Observation lets you see who is operating from ego and who is operating from discipline. That information changes how you engage. You don't argue with ego. You don't compete with emotion. You wait. That's the key. Now look at relationships. Emotional cycles repeat. Argument. Silence. Reconciliation. Repeat. If you react inside the cycle, you stay inside it. If you observe it, you can break it. Most people never step back far enough to see the cycle. They are too busy feeling it. You have a choice. Step back. Zoom out. Stay neutral. This chapter is not teaching detachment. It's teaching perspective. Perspective turns chaos into structure. Structure gives you options. Options give you freedom. That's the key. Observers also notice something else. People reveal their priorities when they think no one is watching. How they act when challenged. How they act when ignored. How they act when they don't get what they want. Those moments expose character, and character determines future behavior. Reactors miss that. Observers catch it. You don't need their permission to learn who they are. This skill takes practice. At first, you'll want to jump in. You'll want to respond. You'll want to correct. That urge is old programming. Let it pass. Each time you observe instead of react, you weaken the old habit. Each time you stay neutral, you strengthen discipline. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. Say it again. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. By now, you've learned to pause. You've learned to delay. You've learned to observe. Now comes a critical move. Observation without withdrawal still leaves you exposed. You must learn how to remove attention, because attention is the real currency, and where you place it determines what grows. You mastered awareness. Now let's talk about starvation. Most people think anger is power. It's not. Anger is energy, and energy, when misplaced, feeds the wrong things. Attention is the real currency. Where you spend it determines influence. That's the key. Every argument, every provocation, every attempt to trigger you has one goal: attention. Not resolution, not truth, not growth, attention. And whatever gets your attention gets your energy. Let this phrase settle. Starve what seeks reaction. Say it again. Starve what seeks reaction. You have a choice. You can confront with anger and feed the fire, or you can disengage calmly and let it die. Manipulation does not survive without attention. That's not opinion. That's mechanics. Anger feels active. It feels strong. It feels like you're doing something. But anger keeps you engaged. Engagement is food, and manipulators are starving for it. That's the key. Calm disengagement is different. It doesn't argue. It doesn't explain. It doesn't announce itself. It simply removes fuel. And without fuel, the behavior collapses. You don't need their permission to disengage. You don't need their permission to step back. You don't need their permission to protect your attention. Let's be clear. Withdrawing attention is not avoidance. It is selection. You are selecting where your energy goes. It's not about cowardice. It's about discipline. Most people don't realize how expensive attention is. Every minute you spend arguing is a minute you don't spend building. Every emotional exchange is a tax on your focus. That tax compounds. That's the key. Look at social media again. Trolls don't survive on logic. They survive on replies. The angrier the reply, the richer they get. When you stop replying, they disappear. Not because they changed, but because they starved. Starve what seeks reaction. Now bring this into real life. A toxic coworker makes a comment designed to provoke. If you confront angrily, they feel powerful. If you disengage calmly, they feel invisible. And invisibility is unbearable for people who seek control. That's the key. Attention validates existence. Remove attention, and the behavior loses purpose. You have a choice. React emotionally and stay trapped, or disengage calmly and move forward. One feeds the cycle, the other ends it. It's not about anger, it's about discipline. Let's talk about boundaries. Many people think boundaries require confrontation. They don't. Boundaries are enforced by behavior, not speeches. If someone disrespects you and you continue engaging, you taught them it's acceptable. If someone disrespects you and you remove access, you taught them consequence. That's power. That's the key. Withdraw attention without drama. No announcement, no explanation, no emotional charge, just less access, less availability, less engagement, less response. People feel that immediately. Calm disengagement is loud without making noise. You don't need their permission. Here's a behavioral instruction. When someone tries to provoke you, do this. Respond once, calmly if necessary, then disengage. No back and forth. No escalation. No performance. One response sets the boundary. Silence enforces it. Starve what seeks reaction. This works because manipulation needs feedback. Feedback confirms impact. No feedback equals no control. That's the key. Now let's address guilt. Many people keep engaging because they feel guilty disengaging. They worry about being rude, cold, unkind. But here's the truth. Protecting your attention is not cruelty. It's self-respect. You are not responsible for regulating other people's emotions. That responsibility belongs to them. It's not about flaw, it's about discipline. Say it again. It's not about flaw, it's about discipline. Anger keeps you emotionally attached. Attachment keeps you reactive. Disengagement detaches you. Detachment restores control. This is why calm people are hard to manipulate. They don't give emotional returns. They don't reward bad behavior. They don't chase closure. They move on. That's the key. Let's talk about timing again. Immediate disengagement is powerful. Delayed disengagement is still disengagement. What matters is consistency. If you withdraw attention today but re-engage tomorrow emotionally, you reset the cycle. Manipulators test consistency. They push to see if you'll break. If you stay calm and disengage long enough, they stop. Not because they learn respect, but because the strategy failed. Starve what seeks reaction. This chapter builds on everything you've learned so far. You paused, you delayed, you observed. Now you remove fuel. This is where freedom starts, because once you stop feeding chaos, Your mind clears, your energy returns, your focus sharpens, and something powerful happens. You become boring to manipulators. That's a compliment. Boring means unresponsive. Unresponsive means uncontrollable. You have a choice: be emotionally entertaining or strategically invisible. One drains you, the other protects you. That's the key. This chapter does not tell you to cut everyone off. It teaches you discernment. Who deserves your attention? Who earns your engagement? Who respects your boundaries? Attention is currency. Spend it deliberately. Because whatever you feed will grow, and whatever you starve will die. Starve what seeks reaction. You've now learned how to disengage. But disengagement is not the end. The end goal is something deeper. Emotional neutrality. A state where nothing sticks, where provocation fails automatically, where peace is not effort, it's default. That's next. You withdrew attention. Now you become untouchable. Most people think strength is reacting less. It's not. Strength is reaching a point where reaction is no longer required. That state has a name: emotional neutrality. And emotional neutrality makes you unattackable. That's the key. When nothing lands, people stop throwing. Let this line settle. Nothing sticks to what doesn't resist. Say it again. Nothing sticks to what doesn't resist. Provocation only works when there is friction. Insults need resistance. Criticism needs ego. Disrespect needs reaction. Remove resistance, and the attack collapses. You have a choice. Most people try to control their reactions. That's exhausting. Control implies effort. Neutrality is effortless. Neutrality means you are no longer emotionally invested in outcomes that don't matter. It's not about suppression. It's about indifference. That's the key. When you become unreactable, you don't brace for impact. There is no impact. Words pass through. Behavior reveals itself. You remain unchanged. That is power. You don't need their permission to be neutral. You don't need their permission to stay centered. You don't need their permission to not care. This chapter is not about being cold. It's about being free. Free from constant emotional negotiation. Free from defending identity. Free from managing other people's moods. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. Most people think being unreactable means you stop feeling. Wrong. You still feel. You just don't obey. Emotion arrives. You observe it. Then you let it pass. No action required. That's the key. Think about physical attacks. A punch only hurts if it lands. Emotional attacks are the same. If there's no resistance, there's no landing. Nothing sticks to what doesn't resist. Now let's be practical. How do you become unreactable? You stop personalizing everything. Personalization is the doorway to reaction. Someone is rude. You think it's about you. Someone disagrees. You think it defines you. Someone ignores you. You think it means something. Most of the time it doesn't. It's their mood, their insecurity, their projection. You have a choice. Internalize it or observe it. One traps you, the other frees you. That's the key. Unreactable people understand this. Other people's behavior is information, not instruction. Information is observed. Instruction is obeyed. You don't obey behavior. You analyze it. That creates distance. Distance creates neutrality. Neutrality creates immunity. You don't need their permission. Let's talk about repetition. When people realize you don't react, they test you. They escalate. They try different angles, sharper words, different tactics. This is normal. They are searching for resistance. If you stay neutral long enough, they give up. Because effort without reward is unsustainable. When nothing lands, people stop throwing. That's the key. Here's a behavioral instruction. Next time someone tries to provoke you, respond internally with this phrase: interesting. Not sarcastic, Not dismissive, neutral. That word reframes the moment. It shifts you from participant to observer. Once you are observing, you are unreactable. Nothing sticks to what doesn't resist. Now let's address fear. Many people fear becoming unreactable because they think it means losing edge. They think emotion fuels performance. Sometimes it does, but uncontrolled emotion destroys consistency. Unreactable people are consistent. Consistency builds trust. Trust builds influence. That's the key. In leadership, emotional neutrality is essential. Teams look to emotional signals. If you panic, they panic. If you react, they react. If you remain calm, you stabilize the room. Observers control rooms. Reactors destabilize them. You choose. You have a choice. In relationships, being unreactable breaks unhealthy cycles. Drama needs two participants. Remove one, and the cycle collapses. Calm is contagious. So is chaos. Choose which one you spread. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. This chapter builds on everything you've learned. You learn to pause. You learn to delay. You learn to observe. You learned to withdraw attention. Now you integrate it. Unreactable is not something you pretend to be. It's something you practice until it becomes default. At first, neutrality will feel unnatural. Good. That means you're changing. Old habits resist change. Let them. You stay steady. That's the key. Over time, you'll notice something powerful. People stop trying you. They stop provoking. They stop pushing. They stop testing because there's nothing to gain. That is peace. And peace is not weakness. Peace is mastery. You don't need their permission to live without chaos. You don't need their permission to protect your nervous system. You don't need their permission to choose calm. Nothing sticks to what doesn't resist. This chapter is not the end. It's the foundation, because once you are unreactable, you realize something profound. True power was never external. It was never about controlling others. It was about controlling yourself. That's next. You mastered neutrality. Now let's talk about where real power lives. Most people misunderstand power. They think power is loud. They think power is visible. They think power needs an audience. It doesn't. True strength doesn't announce itself. That's the key. Power that needs to be seen is power that isn't secure. Power that needs to be proven is power that is already leaking. Let this phrase settle. Mastery is quiet. Say it again. Mastery is quiet. Say it again. The strongest people in the room are rarely the loudest. They don't dominate conversations. They don't flex authority. They don't demand attention. They don't need to, because their power is internal. You have a choice. You can perform strength for others, or you can develop strength within yourself. One is exhausting. The other is permanent. It's not about image. It's about discipline. Performative power seeks reactions. Internal power doesn't need them. Performative power argues. Internal power observes. Performative power escalates. Internal power remains steady. That's the key. Look closely at people who constantly assert dominance. They interrupt. They correct. They posture. That behavior is not confidence. It's insecurity trying to protect itself. True power doesn't rush to control others because it already controls itself. Control over self beats control over others every time. You don't need their permission to stop performing. Let's be clear. This chapter is not telling you to be passive. It's telling you to stop wasting energy trying to look powerful instead of being powerful. Being powerful means you regulate your emotions. You choose your responses. You don't get pulled into chaos. That's real control. That's the key. Performative power is fragile. It collapses under pressure. It overreacts. It lashes out. Internal power is stable. It absorbs pressure. It stays calm. It adapts. That's why calm people intimidate insecure ones, because calm signals control, and control signals strength. Mastery is quiet. Now let's talk about ego again. Ego loves performance. It wants recognition. It wants validation. It wants to be seen winning. But ego-driven power is reactive. Someone challenges it, it reacts. Someone ignores it, it escalates. Someone disrespects it, it explodes. That's not power, that's dependence. You have a choice: depend on others' reactions to feel strong, or build internal discipline that makes reactions irrelevant. One puts power outside you, the other locks it inside. That's the key. Internal power is built in silence. It's built when no one is watching, when you choose not to respond, when you regulate emotion, when you walk away unchanged. Those moments don't look impressive, but they compound. Over time, they make you unshakable. It's not about dominance, it's about discipline. Now let's get practical. Stop announcing your boundaries, enforce them quietly. Stop explaining your decisions, stand by them calmly. Stop trying to win arguments, win your composure instead. That's internal power. You don't need their permission. People who truly have power don't need to convince others of it. Their presence does that. They don't chase respect, they attract it. They don't demand attention, they command it by default. That's the key. Here's a behavioral instruction. For the next week, stop performing strength. No dramatic statements, no emotional declarations, no reactive assertions, no reactive assertions, no reactive assertions. Silence, consistency, boundaries enforced without explanation. Watch what happens. People will test you at first, then they will adjust, because quiet consistency is harder to challenge than loud aggression. Mastery is quiet. This chapter connects everything you've learned. You stopped reacting. You stopped explaining. You stopped feeding chaos. Now you stop performing. Because performance keeps you tied to outcomes. Internal power frees you from them. You are no longer trying to control rooms. You are stable regardless of the room. That's real strength. You have a choice. Live reactively, constantly proving yourself, or live deliberately, rooted in self-mastery. One drains you, the other grounds you. Control over self-beats, control over others, every time. This is why people who master themselves seem untouchable. They are not louder, they are not more aggressive, they are calmer. And calmness is the ultimate signal. It says, I am not threatened. That message changes dynamics instantly. That's the key. This chapter prepares you for the final step. Once power is internal, once mastery is quiet, once you stop performing, you realize something liberating. Most noise is optional. Most conflict is optional. Most conflict is optional. And peace is not something you escape to. It's something you build. One disciplined choice at a time. You have a choice. You've learned awareness. You've learned restraint. You've learned uratenate. You've learned neutrality. You've learned internal power. Now it's time to live above the noise. To choose peace without weakness. To move through the world untouched. Most conflict is optional. Read that again. Most conflict is optional. That's the key. People spend their lives inside noise. Arguments, opinions, provocations, distractions. They mistake noise for importance. It's not. Noise is excess signal, and not every signal deserves a response. Say it again. Not every signal deserves a response. Living above the noise does not mean hiding from life. It means choosing what actually deserves your energy. Peace is not avoidance. Peace is skill. And skill is built through discipline. You have a choice. Most people react because they think they must. They think silence is dangerous. They think disengagement is weakness. It's not. Reacting to everything is weakness. Discerning response is strength. That's the key. Living above the noise means you stop treating every stimulus as urgent. Someone disagrees. Someone criticizes. Someone misunderstands. You don't rush. You don't explain. You don't escalate. You don't internalize. You evaluate. And most of the time, you let it pass. Because most of it doesn't matter. Not every signal deserves a response. This chapter is about maturity, emotional maturity, mental maturity, strategic maturity. It's the ability to say, this is not worth my energy, and mean it. You don't need their permission to disengage. You don't need their permission to choose peace. You don't need their permission to live quietly powerful. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the absence of unnecessary conflict. That's the key. Many people confuse peace with passivity. They think calm people are weak. They're wrong. Calm people have simply learned something others haven't. Chaos is contagious. So is composure. You choose what you spread. It's not about flaw. It's about discipline. Living above the noise requires filtering. You filter conversations, you filter people, you filter situations, not with arrogance, with intention. If it doesn't move you forward, you don't give it space. That's discipline. That's power. Let's talk about attention one last time. Attention is finite. Every minute you spend reacting is a minute you don't spend building. Every emotional argument steals from your future. People who live above the noise guard their attention fiercely, not loudly, quietly. Mastery is quiet. That's the key. Here's a practical framework. Before responding to anything, ask 3 questions. Does this require action? Does this align with my values or goals? Will responding improve anything? If the answer is no, you let it go. No guilt, no explanation. Not every signal deserves a response. This is how peace becomes a skill. You practice restraint. You practice pause. You practice letting things pass. At first it feels unnatural. That's normal. You spent years being trained to react. Training yourself not to takes time. But every time you choose not to engage, you reinforce the skill. Peace compounds. That's the key. Living above the noise also changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who must defend, explain, or react. You become someone who chooses. Chooser, not reactor. Observer, not participant. That shift is everything. You have a choice. You can live inside other people's emotional weather, or you can build your own climate. One is exhausting, the other is stable. Peace is not something you find. It's something you maintain. Through boundaries, through discipline. Through silence when silence serves you. Not every signal deserves a response. This book was never about silence alone, or delay alone, or neutrality alone. It was about freedom. Freedom from being pulled. Freedom from being triggered. Freedom from being managed by other people's behavior. Living above the noise means you are no longer living reactively. You live deliberately. And deliberate living feels calm. That calm becomes your default. People notice. They may not understand it. They may test it. They may challenge it. You don't move because you already know something they don't. Most conflict is optional. That's the key. Let's bring it all together. You learned how bait works. You learned how reactions give leverage. You learned the power of silence. You stopped explaining yourself. You broke predictability. You dissolved ego. You slowed your responses. You observed patterns. You withdrew attention. You became unreactable. You built internal power. Now you live above the noise. This is not a personality. It's a practice, a daily practice. Every day you choose, react or respond, engage or disengage, feed chaos or starve it. You have a choice. And the more often you choose discipline, the easier peace becomes. Until one day, peace is no longer something you work at. It's who you are, not because the world got quieter, but because you did. Not every signal deserves a response. That is the art. That is the discipline. That is the power. And now you carry it with you. You don't win by reacting. You win by refusing the invitation. Every bait you ignore strengthens your position. Every silence sharpens your control. Every moment you don't explain, you reclaim authority. From today forward, you pause before reacting. You choose silence over impulse. You observe instead of engage. And when the bait comes, as it always does, you let it float past untouched. Your challenge is simple. For the next 7 days, do not react emotionally to anything that provokes you. No explanations, no defenses, no justifications, only control, only discipline, only power.